as Wimbledon is to other tennis tournaments, or the Tour de France to other bicycle races, so to the world's other car shows is the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. Yes, that Pebble Beach, the legendary golf links, one of the most beautiful stages in the sport. But each August, the famed 18th fairway at Pebble Beach becomes the stage for beauty of a very different sort. The most breathtaking and historic automobiles in the world, each vying for top honors at the world's premier collector car showcase. Since 1950, the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance has evolved into an unmatched celebration of automotive design and craftsmanship. It is also a fierce competition, as some 200 collector vehicles are judged on the basis of historical accuracy, technical merit, and that most elusive but unmistakable quality, style. To one of these 200-plus hand-picked entries will go the most prestigious award in the collector car world, the title of Best in Show. In addition, this year Pebble Beach will spotlight the cars of Isotta Fraschini, Coachwork by Castagna, and American Dream Rides of the 1960s, as well as the 70th anniversary of the world's most famous automotive brand, Ferrari. Live from California's Monterey Peninsula, welcome to the 2017 edition of the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. We have blue skies, bright sunshine, and a strong sea breeze that would be a great challenge to golfers on any other Sunday at the Pebble Beach Golf Links. But on this Sunday, it's simply ruffling the flags above tens of thousands of automotive enthusiasts from around the world who have come here to admire some of the greatest automobiles in history. Moments ago, a team of nearly 60 honorary judges, luminaries from around the automotive world, were introduced to the crowd, which is definitely in a party mood, and that's another great Pebble Beach tradition. The cars are here as well. Preliminary judging has already taken place, and now these fans, most of whom have been here since before dawn to watch those cars take to the fairway, are ready for the drama about to unfold, and we're glad to have you with us. Hello everyone, I'm Bob Varsha. Once again this year it's my honor to help bring you the action of the Pebble Beach Concours d'Excellence. Now, at its heart, a concours is basically a celebration of the automobile, the great cars, the designers who conceived them, the craftsmen who originally built them or restored them to better than new quality, and of course to the owners whose passion for these vehicles has preserved them for us all to enjoy. Off to my right, the show field of 204 vehicles have come to us from 29 states and 17 countries around the world. Preliminary judging, as I mentioned, has already taken place in 27 classes. Those 27 class winners will be crossing the award stage shortly, and we'll show you as many of them as we can, because from that group of 27 winners will come the best in show. Joining me once again to provide context for all the activities is the International Bureau Chief for Motor Trend, Angus McKenzie. Angus, once again, the Concours has outdone itself.
Absolutely. If you have an ounce of gasoline in your veins or even a passion for steam and electric vehicles, because we've got them here too, Pebble Beach is where you want to be this weekend. We've got 204 cars, 41 of them from overseas, and cars that really set the pulse racing. These are cars that you've only ever seen in books, that maybe you've only ever seen on the screen. We have some cars that have been in movies here. This is the weekend. This is the Indy 500, the Monaco Grand Prix, the Le Mans 24-hour of car collecting. This is the event all these entrants most want to win.
Oh, indeed, they do want to win. Now, the Concours d'Elegance makeup changes from year to year. It's constantly evolving, but the one thing they all have in common is that Best in Show honor, and only one of them can have it. That'll be a bitter disappointment to an awful lot of people.
It's hard to imagine, but you know, a lot of the people who collect these cars, they're very well-off individuals. They're people who maybe built companies, entrepreneurs, you know, businessmen who know how to strike a hard deal. I've seen billionaires close to tears when they haven't won here at Pebble Beach. There's so much emotion that goes into it. It really is competitive out there.
And I suppose it's blasphemous to talk about money. I mean, granted, these are very valuable cars to begin with, but success on the show field can have a big impact on the value of any winning car.
Well, we've seen that over the years. I mean, look at the prices. Duesenbergs have historically commanded, or Bugattis, and of course Ferraris, a perennial favourite here at Pebble Beach. And we've seen some up-and-coming marques come along. A couple of years ago, there was a class here for a car called Ruxton, a 1920s, 30s American car, front-wheel drive, very interesting little car. Really only aficionados would know anything about them, but now suddenly Ruxtons are kind of sought after because of the class here, bringing all those cars together for the first time, and their values are going up.
That's definitely the definition of an influencer. Now, in order to see where we are, perhaps we should go back to the beginning in 1950 and the very first Concours.
Yes, the very first Concours was held here on the Monterey Peninsula in conjunction with the Pebble Beach races held out on the roads in the Del Monte Forest. And the very first Concours wasn't actually held here on the lawn. It didn't come to the lawn until 1952. But that first Concours, just 30 cars entered, and there were just 3 different categories, so quite a change from those days.
Indeed. In its earliest years, showing cars took a back seat to racing them here at the home of the Lone Cypress and the scenic 17-mile drive. With more, here's Alan de Cadenet.
The first Pebble Beach race took place in 1950 and was won by future world champion Phil Hill in his XK 120. But the races started to get very dangerous indeed. Too many people showed up. And in 1956, there was a ghastly fatality. And accordingly, the races had to be moved from Pebble Beach somewhere else. Well, they went to Laguna Seca, which isn't that far away. But the original roads that the races took place on are still here. And my favourite marque of car, Alfa Romeo, they've loaned me this lovely Stelvio. So it's an excellent machine. Go and have a look at those roads. You know, it's amazing to think that these very roads that we're driving on here, that serve all these rather lovely houses here at Pebble Beach, used to be a racetrack when those 6 races were run here in the 1950s. And this is exactly where all those heroes of the time came and did their stuff. However, look at all these pine trees. I mean, if you flew off here and hit one of those, it would not be funny, as indeed it wasn't for poor old Ernie McAfee in 1956. Now, I really think if those cars that raced here in the 50s had had anything like the handling I've got in this Alfa today, and the brakes for that matter, all the races would have been infinitely safer. Maybe they would have continued it. Alfa Romeo, of course, used what they learned from those cars in those days to better their street cars, which is precisely, of course, what they do today. This car I'm driving today is the Stelvio. That's Alfa Romeo's first SUV. Very much indeed a performance-orientated car. They have put no end of thought into the design and the performance, and of course it shares the same basic platform as the Giulia. It's been a long time coming, but I have to say, very joyful indeed to drive, especially out here on the very self-same roads that they had those Pebble Beach races on way back in the 1950s. Fantastic. How important were these Pebble Beach races? Well, I tell you, very. Look at Phil Hill. I mean, he wins here in 1950. He gets himself a 1938 Alfa Romeo 2.9. He races that. He wins races when he goes to Laguna Seca, and he winds up in 1961 as a Formula One driver, winning the World Championship. What a joy it is to drive here at Pebble Beach in a wonderful car like this.
Thanks, Alain. Who could have guessed back in the early 50s how that humble 30-car exhibition would mature into the world's premier Concours d'Elegance? And Phil Hill's impact on the event extended well beyond the races.
In 1955, there was a unique double. Phil Hill won the Pebble Beach Road Race out there in the forest, and his 1931 Pierce Arrow LeBaron convertible town cabriolet also won Best of Show, an absolutely unique double and a bit of a trendsetter because that 1931 car set a trend for 20s and 30s grand, elegant, extravagant cars to be the star cars here at Pebble Beach.
In 1957, the Pebble Beach road races moved across the peninsula to the Laguna Seca racetrack, but the Concours d'Elegance has remained here and gone from strength to strength year after year. Now, also joining us once again this year are our car experts out there in the field, admiring the cars, critiquing them, and hopefully having a great time. Alan de Cadenet, Johnny Lieberman, and Ed Lowe are with us. Let's hear from them now, beginning with Alan.
You know, guys, I concur with everything you've said about this marvellous show. You cannot eulogize it enough. But of course, what for us is very, very special is just normal business for Pebble Beach. They calleth, we cometh. It's as simple as that. Everybody in the world who owns anything halfway decent would just love to have it on the lawn here. I have to say, for me, one of the most extraordinary things I've seen this morning are 4 cars that each won the Mille Miglia 1,000-mile race in Italy outright. 49 car, 50 car, 51 car, and 57 car. I mean, it is literally, that's how it is here at Pebble Beach. Johnny?
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, that Mille winner, the 57, is blowing my mind. But the cars might be classic. The show never gets old. And it's not just the great variety and diversity of the cars here, but it's the quality of the curation. To call these cars the best of the best is a major, major understatement. And once again, I'm humbled and honored to be a part of it. And now I'm going to throw it over to my colleague, Ed Lowe, who's standing out on the concept lawn.
Thanks, guys. So we're here at one of my very favorite parts of the entire Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance weekend. We're at the concept car lawn here amidst all of these beautiful concept cars, new and old. We have vehicles from Koenigsegg, from Lamborghini, McLaren, Infiniti, VW, race cars from Acura and Ford, including this beauty, the only one here that is still dirty from its race win at Le Mans. This is Ford's GT race car riding on Michelin race rubber. This is the actual winner, piloted by Joey Hand, Dirk Mueller, and Sebastian Bourdais. Fantastic that it's out here amidst all of these pristine and clean concept cars. It's really striking to see this race winner out here. Love it. It's also just ahead of another big-time reveal out here, BMW Z4 concept. Now, this is the next generation of BMW's Roadster, the Z4, and as you can see, it's stunning. It's got a beautiful black and tan interior, 20-inch wheels riding on Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires. We don't know how much power it makes. We don't know what the engine is or how fast it is. No details. They're just showing this off in its concept form. All of those other details will be revealed at the Frankfurt Motor Show later this year. But man, there are some fantastic examples of automotive design out here at the concept car lawn. Wish you guys could all be here. Angus and Bob, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Ed. And now taking place on the ramp, the Parade of Elegance.
Yeah, these are Isotta Fraschini cars, one of the featured marques here at Pebble Beach this year. Isotta Fraschini, an Italian automaker, founded in 1900 by Cesare Isotta and the brothers Vincenzo, Antonio, and Oreste Fraschini. And prior to establishing their own company, building their own cars, they actually assembled Renaults. These cars were very much sought after by the rich and famous in America in the 1920s and 30s. And, you know, film stars like Clara Bow and Rudolph Valentino actually drove Isotta Frascinis. And Isotta's also featured in films. One of the cars here today was in the film Sunset Boulevard, and also in Death Takes a Holiday with Frederick March. Talk about vintage cinema.
Now, in addition to his duties on the lawn here at Pebble, Alan DeCadenet busied himself earlier this week over at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca in a vintage example of his favorite marque.
This is a little beauty that I'm driving here today at the Rolex Motorsport Reunion at Laguna Seca. She's a 1932 Alfa Romeo 8-cylinder Mille Miglia car that won the Mille Miglia 1,000-mile race in 1932, designed by Vittorio Jano, some say his greatest creation. I'm one of them. But have a look under here, will you? Look, that is a straight 8 twin overhead cam, supercharged engine, carburetor at the front, and it has the most beautiful finned manifold. Could have been designed, in fact, by sculptor Bernini himself. But I'm going out for practice and qualifying. Apparently, this baby will do 125 miles an hour. About to find out. it's true. Everything they said about this car is what it does. It's got bags of grunt. It turns in, they've sorted the brakes out for me. It's a different car without all the weight it had on the spare wheels. We took them off. And what's really fun is when you come up behind somebody, if they're burning methanol and bean oil, you get that wonderful stench, sweet smell of racing fuel. I love it. This is something everybody should try at least once in their life.
Looks like fun, Alan. Now it's time to begin recognizing the best of the best in the eyes of the judges, the top cars in each class in competition here on the show field.
So we're seeing cars now lining up for the first of our class wins, and this is the first class across the ramp today, Class A, Antique. So what's the definition of an antique? Well, basically a car built 1914 or earlier. And you know, we're going right back to the pioneer days of the auto industry. And in those days, it was a bit like the dot-com industry. There were, 485 companies were started between 1900 and 1908 in America. 485 auto companies. That's pretty amazing.
A Thomas Flyer.
Thank you for being so keen. We're going to hold you for just a little moment longer.
And I think this is the one that Johnny Lieberman loves because it has the analog the analog navigation system in it, and you can look. There's a dial in the car. You set it all up, and it tells you exactly where you should be at a given mileage. Quite remarkable. We like to think that we're all smart and clever these days, but really, in terms of automotive engineering, there's nothing new under the sun. What's happened, of course, is that we've improved so much in terms of the technologies and the engineering capability that we have, that we've been able to turn ideas that these early pioneers of the automotive age had into reality that you can use every day. The 1910 Thomas Flyer.
And second in class, 300 for 1906, Pope Toledo.
So coming up onto the ramp now, second in the class, the 1906 Pope Toledo Type 12 Touring. And Pope Toledo is interesting. Colonel Albert Pope actually was a gentleman who built a number of different cars with a number of different brand names, and Pope Toledo was just one of them. This particular sedan has an overhead valve, 44 horsepower, 4-cylinder engine, and sold for $3,500, which back in 1906 was not cheap.
This is another double winner. Second in the antique class, but also picking up the Ansel Adams Award, presented to the most desirable touring car of its era. And of course, Ansel Adams, the photographer, needs no introduction.
Yes, it is.
The winner receives a photograph donated by Ansel Adams' family.
The Type 12 was built from 1905 through 1908. And 720 was sold a year, but only a handful have survived. So this is a pretty rare car, and these old brass cars are cars full of character. You go back to the pioneering era of the automobile, when even just going on a 20-mile drive was an adventure. Looking there, the 1913 Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost Barker torpedo. Of course, Rolls-Royce, many automakers like to think they're in the luxury business. Rolls-Royce pretty much invented the game way back in 1904.
And provided one of the memorable lines from the final episode of the Downton Abbey TV show. And someone said, wouldn't you want to bet on Mr. Rolls and Mr. Royce and what they might accomplish when they join forces? Or something to that effect. I immediately perked up from the couch when I heard that line.
Well, absolutely. Henry Royce, of course, was the engineer whose absolute passion for precision and excellence is really what made Rolls-Royce the luxury brand it is today. And Rolls-Royce cars became luxury cars not because they were just expensive, but because they were very well engineered.
Right now we want to join Johnny Lieberman, standing by with a regular spectator here at Pebble Beach.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I'm here with this guy, Jay. Is your name?
Jay, yes. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Good. I love the fact that you're covering a car show, yet it looks like a boat show because all the cars are that way, yet the cameras are shooting that way. I think there's a certain instinct when you do these kind of, it's a car show. Man, look at that one! Man, that is the most exciting shape I've seen.
I know you're new to this whole TV thing, but they have this stuff called B-roll, so they're gonna roll cars while we're talking.
No, this is C-roll.
Okay. So, Mr. Leno, you seen anything here you liked?
Yeah, I see a lot of stuff here I like, obviously. You know, this is sort of the Super Bowl of car shows. I personally sort of like the Father's Day car shows where it's guys with Mustangs and Camaros and there's no real prize. You just sort of show up and you just talk cars. I mean, this, you get to see stuff you've only seen in magazines, exotica from the 20s and 30s. I mean, cars that I never thought I'd ever see in person just show up here, and it's fascinating. It's really fascinating.
I saw one of those, the Imperial Airflow, which I did. I thought they were all dead.
That belonged to Major Bowes. Major Bowes was a guy. If anybody remembers the Ted Mack Amateur Hour, Ted Mack took it over after Major Bowes. He was the first one, and he became quite wealthy. And it was, it was a talent competition like America's Got Talent, but it was really huge because everybody listened to it. There was only 3 stations or 2 stations, whatever it was.
Right.
You know, so he had that custom Imperial bill. That's a 35. I saw the car years ago. It used to belong to a guy named Frank Kleps. So the man who bought it really did a really terrific 4-year restoration and brought it back. So it's exciting to see it.
So one of the things we talk about a lot is we try and predict, who's going to win, who's going to win. So do you have any that you think? I mean, you've done this a few times. Do you have any that you've seen that you think might
who's
actually
win this show?
Yeah, who's going to win this year?
It's different because my standard is that elegance comes first. So if you have an elegant car that can barely make it over the podium, but if it makes it over the podium, it qualifies. So it's not. I don't know. It's really interesting. I like the preservation class. I like cars that have been used. If guys have got tweezers pulling grass blades out of the tread, there's a place for that too.
Sure.
But it doesn't seem like that should compete against somebody who, like to me, someone who drove their car to Pebble Beach, used some detailing and cleaned it up, should get a few more points than the guy who brought it in the trailer.
Well, let me ask you then, let's go to the pre-war preservation.
Yeah.
You see anything in there you liked?
Yes, there's a 1916 Locomobile down there, which is just fascinating. I mean, somebody saved that car. Somebody cared enough about it. Anybody can save it now.
Sure.
Because we Americans just throw stuff away. I remember I was in England, and my aunt lived over there, and she introduced me to the local vicar, and he goes, "Oh, you got motorbikes? I've got a motorbike." I said, "What do you have?" He goes, "A 1962 Honda Bentley." And I said, "Oh, well, that's a rare bike. Are you a collector?" He goes, "No, I bought it new." I mean, he's still, because they take care of it.
Sure.
Here in America, we buy stuff, we have the hot thing for a couple of years.
Right, then you get the new one.
You beat the crap out of it, you throw it away, it gets junk, and then you move on to the next thing, But you go to Europe where cars are perhaps more treasured because they're not quite so common, and people take care of them for a long time.
Yeah, and Locomobiles, it's a great brand. That's the other thing, too. Everyone's forgotten about that, but that was above Cadillac. I mean, that was like a cool... that was the wealthy kind of luxury brand back then.
Locomobile was a company. They approached the Stanley brothers. Stanley had the Stanley Steamer, and they want to buy your company. And the Stanley said, "Well, let's just throw a stupid price on them." And the Stanley brothers said $250,000. He said, "We'll take it." And oh my gosh! So they sold it to him, and then they built a car called the Locomobile, which was a copy of a Stanley Steamer. But technology is moving so quickly, they realized steam is not the future. So the Stanleys bought it back for 10 cents on the dollar, called the Stanley Steamer again. They're a very clever businessmen. Yeah.
Speaking of steamers, I know you're into them, but there's a beautiful red and yellow steamer
I
over
saw
there.
that, yeah.
What do you think of that one?
Oh, that's obviously a great car. I mean, steam is a lot of fun. I mean, if you like to be involved and you're not really where... That's good enough, if you're not there with micrometers and everything, steam is fantastic because it's a real blacksmith's tool, and that's what's fun about it. Yeah, I love it.
Okay, so we got to ask you. It's Ferrari's 70th anniversary.
Right.
A lot of Ferraris here.
Many Ferraris, yeah.
There's the 250 GTO. Is there anything else that you liked?
I would like to find a Ferrari owner with the first wife. That would be an interesting. Because that's a category you will never
And
find.
on that note, Mr. Leno, we're going to end it. Thank you so much for spending some time.
There.
Yeah, we got to end it. We got to end it.
Oh, gosh.
Anyways,
right.
Bob, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, Bob.
Oh, thanks, guys. Now let's turn to Ed Lowe with another key element of the weekend here at Pebble Beach.
So one of the greatest parts of the Pebble Beach weekend is at the very start. It's the Tour de Elegance. And what it is a collection of some of the vehicles that appear on the concours lawn on Sunday out for a beautiful drive along the Pacific coast. And the bonus is, if you took part in this event, it could be the tiebreaker for Best in Show. Now I'm in this car right here. This is leading the pack. This is the AMG 300 SEL 6.8, the very first race car by AMG. My driving partner is Jochen Mass, the legendary race car driver, Formula One, Le Mans, you name it, he's won it. We're gonna go for a drive, leading this pack, and it should be an incredible experience. You're a race car driver. Yeah. You were driving the highest technology vehicles. You really get excited about driving a 1900s vehicle, really?
Absolutely. I think there's something connected between emotions, style, the aesthetics. You never lost this feeling of driving a car, the pleasure of just moving and driving it.
Thanks, Ed. Now, not only is the Tour d'Elegance a key element in deciding best of show here at Pebble Beach, you notice the cars moving through the nearby town of Carmel, giving the crowds of car enthusiasts gathered there an up-close and totally free look at these fabulous vehicles. And now we move on to the American Classic Closed category.
Yes, and the car up there now is the Chrysler CL Imperial Custom LeBaron sedan, and LeBaron is a name that we ended up seeing as a trim level on modern cars, but back in those days, of course, it was a genuine coach builder and built some terrific formal bodies for these large cars, and a very nice car, that one too. Yes, and here comes the first place.
Custom Super 8 Rolls-Royce.
I will admit, it is a challenge keeping up with all the cars rolling across the block and keeping our paperwork straight in this wind.
This is the 1940 Packard 1807 Custom Super 8 Rolston Sports Sedan, and this is a very racy looking Packard. Packards were generally a little more sober, serious sort of cars. This 180 series, they were Packard's top-of-the-range car from 1940s, and the Rolston bodies were some of the strongest and most over-engineered, using only the finest materials. And this car is actually ordered by a judge in Puerto Rico, and it suffered quite a bit down there in the salty air and came back to the US to be restored in 1985. And it's back in its original color, and it's the first time this car's been shown in 23 years. Quite an amazing car, and Packard are, of course, one of the iconic great American companies, Packard cars. Packard was founded in Warren, Ohio, and by 1929 was America's premier luxury brand. Back in the days when a Ford cost $600, a Packard chassis cost $3,000.
It's another double winner, picking up the Classic Car Club of America trophy, awarded to the most significant classic car present. Its owners are Michelle and Martin Quasino from Beverly Hills, California. And now here we are in the full-on Packard class. First up, I believe, is the 1939 Packard 1703 Super 8 Darren Convertible Victoria.
Yes, we're just cars on the ramp now, owned by Leon Flagg and Curtis Lamont of Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin, and this in 1939 previewed the new 356 cubic inch engine for the Super 8, which continued all the way through to 1950. And Packard had a great reputation for engineering, of course. During World War II, Packard actually built a copy of Rolls-Royce Merlin's engine for Mustang fighters, and it's rumored that when they got the drawings from the British, Packard engineers found that the tolerances weren't that precise, so they went through and effectively re-engineered the engine all over again.
Oh my goodness.
Second, we have the 1932 Packard 904.
So coming up now, the 1932 Packard 904 Deluxe 8 Dietrich Sport Phaeton, and this is one of the last custom body Dietrichs built in 1931. Dietrich, the bodybuilder, and it's a very American style of car. That V windshield, raked back a bit, the big long hood, those massive chrome headlights, nickel-plated headlights up front. A classic American car.
That one bought in the early 1970s by Otis Chandler, famed collector, before going to the Imperial Palace Auto Collection.
So here we have our winner in the Packard class, the 1932 Packard 906 Twin 6 Dietrich Convertible Victoria. And Packard introduced its first Twin 6, which is a very polite way of saying they had a V12, in 1916, and then introduced another V12 engine in 1932. And this particular Packard is the only 1932 Twin 6 Dietrich Convertible Victoria left in the world. An absolutely unique car.
Winner in class, and also the winner of the Elegance in Motion trophy, awarded to the car deemed to be the most elegant in motion, clearly. To qualify for the award, the car must have successfully completed the Pebble Beach Tour d'Elegance, which is something we'll be talking about as the afternoon goes on.
And of course, as a class winner, this car is in contention for Best in Show award. Is it going to be one of the top contenders for Best in Show? Pretty early to say yet. There are a number of cars out there that we haven't seen yet. They're utterly spectacular.
And there's a group lined up, 3 by 3, awaiting their turn on stage.
These are the Duesenbergs, and I love the Duesenbergs. These are some of the most extravagant, powerful American cars ever built. Between the wars, 1920s and 1930s, these were the Bugatti Veyrons, the Bugatti Chirons of their era. They were fast, powerful, good-looking cars. And third in the Duesenberg class is this 1931 J. Murphy convertible coupe. It's one of just 27 fitted with the disappearing top convertible coupe body by Walter M. Murphy and Company. It was built for a New York gangster, apparently, who died after a day of owning it. I don't know whether the pressure was too much or whether he had some business issues he had to deal with.
At least he had a day with the car.
Wonderful car, and some of the backstories on this cars are what make them so interesting. The next owner of that car was known as the English Godfather, who also owned Harlem's famous Cotton Club, and you can just imagine that car back in the day pulling up in front of the Cotton Club.
Right, absolutely. And now rolling up, second place in the Duesenberg class, a 1935 J.N. Rolston Berlin.
A more formal sort of car. The Model J was redesigned in 1935, and the new car was called the JN. That's what this one is. It had smaller 17-inch wheels, and you'll notice the fenders are skirted. There's bullet-shaped tail lights around the rear. The very first JN chassis was bought by Clark Gable, and Duesenbergs, like Isotta Fraschini's, were very popular among the Hollywood set in the 20s and 30s. So this car has a lot of history to it. Another wonderful backstory. This particular car was sold to Bill Bojangles Robinson, the famous Hollywood tap dancer. I didn't know there was so much money in tap dancing.
Well, the car only cost a few $1,000s back then.
Oh yes, I thought this car might take out the class. This is very interesting. Most Duesenbergs we see look a little earlier in their configuration, 1920s cars, late 1920s cars. This is a 1935 S.J. Bowman and Schwartz town car. And Christian Bowman and Morris Schwartz began their company after Murphy Coachworks closed in 1932. And Bowman and Schwartz produced some of the most famous and extravagant custom Duesenbergs ever made, and this is one of them. The Art Deco SJ, this one has coachwork designed for Mae West that was built for confectionery heiress Ethel Mars.
Wow, even back then I imagine you needed to sell a ton of Mars bars to afford a doozy like that one. You can imagine what it takes to keep that car's finish in Concours condition. Johnny Lieberman is standing by with a man who knows exactly what it takes.
I'm standing here with Jim Holloway of Mother's Polish, and believe it or not, this is his very first Concours d'Elegance here at Pebble Beach. Jim, what do you think?
I'm awestruck. I mean, this is spectacular. I mean, look at the view, look at the cars. We've got a beautiful Alfa Romeo next to us. We've got a gyro car down at the other end. Pre-war. It's my first time here. I got to take it all in.
This is my 9th time here, and I'm still blown away. But I got to ask you, so this little Alfa Romeo Buono coupe we're standing next to, right? It looks pretty spectacular at the moment. if I want to get my little Ford to be in concours condition, what would I have to do to it? How long would it take to look like this?
Well, I'm not sure you can put a time frame on how long it's going to take you to make the car look good. What we need are specific products and tools and somebody with the educational set to get it there. We like to start with, well, when you take a look at this car, we have professional products from compounds to foam pad, polish, hand glaze, straight paste waxes that we use on nitrocellulose lacquers. When you look at the wheels here, we've got all kinds of metal polishes. Sometimes we do science specific, where we learn what the metal is and then design a product for that metal.
So it's a combination of both art and science.
Absolutely. A lot of skill set.
Time for our next class, Rolls-Royce pre-war.
So third in class, the 1937 Rolls-Royce Phantom 3 in-skip convertible roadster. And the Phantom 3 was unveiled at the 1935 Olympia Motor Show and was the most technically advanced car in the world at the time. 727 Phantom 3s were built and less than 20 were bodied in the US, and all of these were by the JS Inskip company. So this was the day, of course, when you bought a car like this, you basically bought a rolling chassis, and that's what you paid Rolls-Royce for, and then to put a body on top of that, you paid extra.
Send it to one of the great coach works to your specifications.
So second in class, the 1929 Rolls-Royce Phantom 1 Brewster Ascot Tourer. And Rolls-Royce, of course, is most associated with being built in the UK, in England, many, many years at Crewe, now near Goodwood and on Lord March's property near Goodwood House. But Rolls-Royces were actually built in America for a time in Springfield, Massachusetts, and the Brewster Body Company was acquired in 1926 and offered standard Brewster coachwork on the new Phantom.
Let's have a look underneath this car with the help of our mother's ramp cam. And as you can see, pristine above and equally so below.
Well, as Jay Leno said earlier, there are guys out here with toothbrushes and toothpicks picking out bits of grass. Oh yes, I thought this car would win the class. Coming up on first in class pre-war Rolls-Royce, the 1936 Phantom 3 H.J. Mulliner sports limousine, and this is a remarkable car. I mean, look at that windshield. It's a reverse angle windshield on it, and the body flows back into a streamlined fastback body. Quite avant-garde for 1936. And this car is known affectionately as Monty's Rolls because it was owned for 20 years by Field Marshal Montgomery of Alamein.
Let's have a look under this one with our mother's ramp cam. Field Marshal Montgomery, the hero of the Battle of El Alamein in North Africa.
Absolutely immaculate everywhere. These cars are actually better than new as it rolls off the ramp. The coachwork was designed by de Havilland Aircraft Company and built by Mulliner for the chairman of de Havilland. And that forward sloping windscreen was found to reduce wind resistance by 15%. Remarkable.
Yeah, that's the kind of insight you'd expect from an aircraft company.
Mercedes-Benz pre-war.
Used by the Army and seen in newsreels with King George VI, Dwight Eisenhower, and Sir Winston Churchill. As we move on to our next class, Mercedes-Benz pre-war.
And there on the ramp, the 1934 Mercedes-Benz 380K Cabriolet A. And the 380 was unveiled at the Berlin Auto Show in February 1933. It's got an 8-cylinder, 3.8-litre engine with a supercharger. And about 150 380Ks were built, including 16 of this particular cabriolet, and only a few are thought to have survived.
This car comes to us from China, owned by Yihong Chen of Beijing. And this year we've seen the first significant arrival from China, which is another great indicator for the future of the concours. More worldwide participation.
Yeah, car enthusiasm knows no bounds. It's passion for cars is a universal language. People speak a universal language. It's a love of cars and all things car. Second in the Mercedes-Benz pre-war class, the 1929 Mercedes-Benz SS Castagna Cabriolet, owned by the Keller Collection, of course. And the S and SS were very expensive cars in the late 1920s, and Castagna, we'll see more of those cars at in the Isotta Fraschini classes later on. It was popular, the bodies were popular among Europe's wealthy car owners for their beautiful yet understated bodywork. This car's simple lines but very luxurious interior and a bit of a celebrity connection.
It's also another double winner, adding the Mercedes-Benz Star of Excellence Award, presented to the most significant Mercedes-Benz present at this year's Concours.
So that car, the exterior looks fairly restrained, but the interior, it's got ostrich hide interior, and the car is said to have been owned by Al Jolson.
And a class winner here at Pebble Beach in 1989. And the rule is, once you've succeeded at Pebble Beach, you may not return for a decade.
So on the ramp now is one of my hot favorites for best of show. This is the 1929 Mercedes-Benz S Barcatura. This is a fabulous car. The car was delivered to Mercedes-Benz of London and uprated to full SS 7-litre supercharged specification with a very special lightweight coachwork by Barker of London. And it was owned by Earl Howe, a famous British racing driver between the wars. This car has the ramp presence. It has the style to make it a hot favorite for best of show this year.
Time now for a review of just a few of the class winners that will form the pool from which our best of show winner will emerge. In Class J1 for European Early Classics, the winner was a 1931 Hispano-Suiza J12 Sauchik Transformable Ground Looks. In Class J2 for Mid-30s Classics, a 37 Bugatti Type 57S Gangloff Coupe. And in the younger European Classics, J3, a 1939 Bugatti Type 57C Vol and Rurbeck Cabriolet. While Class J4 for European Classic Sport models, the winner was a 1930 Bentley 4.5-liter SC Vandenplas Le Mans Sports. And in Class K1, the top selection was a 1927 Isotta Fraschini Tipo 8A Fleetwood Roadster. As the next car rolls up on stage, in Class K2 for Isotta Fraschini Castagna Open Coachwork, we have this 1930 Isotta Fraschini Tipo 8A SS Castagna Cabriolet, all the way from Slovakia. The judges' selection in Class K3 for Isotta Fraschini Castagna Enclosed Coachwork is this 1929 Isotta Fraschini Tipo 8A Castagna Limousine. It was titled as a toy limousine when delivered new to Howe Willis, a Chicago businessman and the world's leading expert on Isotta Fraschini, and it was owned at one time by famed tenor Sergio Franchi. Winner in Class L1 for pre-war preservation, meaning unrestored cars, is this 1931 Bentley 8-liter Vandenplas Tourer, one of just 100 examples built due to the economic crash of the Great Depression. It's the only 8-liter Bentley race car built, though sadly it never raced and has covered just 7,000 miles. Now here's another of our class winners, Class L2 for post-war preservation. A gorgeous 1963 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster in all its original glory. Again, this is a preservation class entry and not a restoration. Another international submission as well, this one from Switzerland. In the M1 class for Ferrari Grand Touring cars, the winner is this unusual 1951 Ferrari 212 Export Vignale Cabriolet, one of a pair of cars designed by Giovanni Michelotti and built by Carrozzerias Vignale. Our winner in Class M2 for Ferrari competition cars is this 1958 Ferrari 335 Sports Gaglietti Spider, coming to Pebble Beach from Austria. Known as the Super Testarossa and one of just 4 built, it was raced often, including the 1990 Mille Miglia Storica in the hands of Phil Hill. And on the subject of Ferrari, we asked second-generation race driver Derek Hill to showcase a classic example of the prancing horse, one with a special tie to his family.
This year at Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, Ferrari celebrates its 70th anniversary. And one thing we all know about Ferrari is that it has a rich racing history. And one of the most iconic series of racing prototypes was the 250 Testarossa. This specific TR5960 serial number 0774 is a very rare, unique car in its own right. This car not only won Buenos Aires in 1960, but it won the granddaddy of them all, the Le Mans 24 Hours.
They were not able to match the pace of the Ferrari. And once again, it was Olivier Gendebien and Phil Hill who dominated proceedings, basically from start to finish.
All of that combined with its beauty, with its styling, and with its success on the racetrack makes it one of the most collectible cars on the planet. There is so much to love about this car. Of course, all the Testarossas had the iconic 3-liter V12 engine. The 6 Weber carburetors all bolted down to the V12 engine. This beautiful plexiglass cover, which was introduced in 1959. The biggest difference for the 1960 car was this really tall windshield. Actually something that my father wasn't too crazy about, because after all the grime and dirt and dust got on these windshields, you could hardly see anything with the brake lights in front of you and the headlights coming behind you. As beautiful as this car is to look at, and how much you just like to admire it sitting here statically, the only thing that I really love to do with these cars is to get them out on the track, bring them to life. That was amazing. There's nothing like a Ferrari Testarossa V12. What an iconic car, a car my dad won in Buenos Aires, and the car that won Le Mans in 1960. Check that one off the list. That was awesome.
The rest of us mere mortals can only imagine. Thanks to Derek for that profile of an iconic Ferrari redhead. And in Class M3 for Ferrari major race winners, the judges chose this 1957 Ferrari 315S Gaglietti Spider, featuring a 3.8-liter V12 engine to take on Jaguar and Maserati at the Mille Miglia. The car also finished 5th at Le Mans later that year, the only factory car to see the checkered flag, and it is the only remaining example. Ferrari one-off Speciales make up Class M4, and the winner is this 1957 Ferrari 410 Super America Pininfarina Coupe, built on the 410 Super America chassis using a 4.9-liter engine. It was created for the Dutch Ferrari collector and North American racing team benefactor Jan de Vroom of New York City. It was first displayed on the Pininfarina stand at the 1957 Paris and Turin motor shows. In Class 01 for post-war open cars, the judges selected this 1952 Porsche 356 Reuter Cabriolet. It's an early example of the Porsche 356 Pre-A cab, distinguished by its one-piece bent window windshield. The Pre-A Cabriolet was the top of the Porsche range back in the day. In the 02 class for post-war closed bodywork, the winner was this 1955 Alfa Romeo 1900 CSS Buono Coupe Speciale, a one-off first shown at the 1955 Turin Motor Show. The car was originally finished in yellow with a black roof, but the paint was changed in period to Italian red and then restored to its original glory. The winner in Class 03 for post-war racing cars is this 1952 Seata 208 CS Corsa Bertone Spider. In 1952, Giuseppe Bertone himself raced this car. The ownership chain includes Lee Holman of Holman & Moody racing fame here in North America, who sold it on in 1970. We mentioned at the top of the show that the competition among so many fine cars is at the core of the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. Case in point, Alain de Cadenet is standing by with an entry for post-war closed cars that did not win the class, but it's certainly worthy of a car lover's attention.
For an Alfisti like me, this is truly one of the most special cars here at Pebble Beach. It's a 1954 Alfa Romeo 1900 CSS, SS for Sprint Speciale. It's got an aluminium body by Zagato on it, and just look at this beauty, complete and utterly restored in Italy. Every single I is dotted, T is crossed. They've left nothing out. It's even got its original Nardi steering wheel. And what's beautiful about this car, on top of that, is that it ran in the Mille Miglia in 1955, 56 and 57, and therefore has, I would say, as good a history as any other Alfa here today.
Thanks, Alain. Continuing now with our review of the class winners. In Class 04 for post-war Grand Touring machines, the winner is this 1947 Delahaye 135 MS Figoni and Falaschi Cabriolet. This fabulous example of the French coach builder's art, often called the narwhal design after the whale of the same name, is one of just 7 similar cars built by Figoni and Falaschi. And in Class R for American dream cars of the 60s, the winner is this 1965 Pontiac Vivant Herb Adams Roadster, created by Pontiac engineer Herb Adams. Pontiac styling cues abound, and the mechanical components include the rare 370 cubic inch V8 engine. This is the car's first public appearance in more than half a century. The winner in Class V for open-wheel race cars is this 1907 Renault AI 3545 horsepower Vanderbilt Racer, a 12.3-liter race car built in 1905 by Marcel Renault for the Vanderbilt Cup races on Long Island. It so impressed patron William Vanderbilt Jr. that he had one built for himself, leading to its nickname, the Vanderbilt Renault. And such is the automotive treasure assembled here at Pebble Beach that we're barely halfway through our legion of class winners, with more still to come. I'm Bob Varsha with Angus McKenzie. Angus, how do you feel about the winners that were announced?
I think a stellar show this year, and some real cars that you'll see hopefully as Johnny and Alan get into position there. Real star cars. A couple of cars I liked. I liked the Mercedes-Benz with the Barker body, 1929 car. It has real ramp presence, and hopefully we'll see that car shortly. Big surprise here too, the preservation class. There's the 8-litre Bentley in the preservation class that the outside word is this could be in with a shot at best in show, which would be absolutely remarkable for Pebble Beach. You heard Jay Leno talking earlier about guys picking bits of grass out of the tyres with toothpicks. This is a car that's not restored. And imagine a car not being restored, winning at Pebble Beach. That hasn't happened since the 50s. And the other car I like, there's a Bugatti with a fallen Rohrbuch German body on it. Very elegant car, though I think it might struggle with the design of the grille. It's just a little bit confronting, but some very interesting cars today.
Well, stay with us through our final hour. Still to come, of course, live here on the air is the announcement of Best in Show. Right now, let's get caught up on the class winners with Johnny and Alan.
Thanks, Bob. This is Johnny, and I'm standing here with a gentleman named Paul, who has restored this gorgeous Rolls-Royce Phantom 3 behind me. Paul, could you tell us a little bit about the history of this car that just won its class?
Sure. The car was ordered by Sir Alan Butler, the chairman of de Havilland Aircraft. And they found, with the aircraft at de Havilland, they found that a windscreen like that was good in a wind tunnel. So he had it, H.J. Muller, the coach builders, build that windscreen onto the car. But then when the war came, he gave the car to the war effort. And it belonged to the ministry during the war, and it was mainly Field Marshal Montgomery's car, but it was also used by Winston Churchill and Eisenhower.
So the provenance of this car is pretty incredible. I mean, that's some real heads of states plus a military legend.
Unbelievable, yeah, fantastic history. Fantastic car, fantastic history. You can't do much better than that.
Do you think this car has what it takes to go across the ramp?
I think it's got what it takes, but when you look around here at all the cars it's up against, it's a tall order.
Well, Paul, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you nothing but luck.
What you see here is a bit of an odd piece, one of the very special and unique entries at this year's Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. That is the one and only 1967 Gyro X prototype, a two-wheeler balanced by an onboard gyroscope with a 1.2-liter engine and said to be capable of 125 miles per hour, theoretically. Now to something a bit more contemporary from our friends at Alfa Romeo.
If you take a look at Alfa Romeo, ever since we reintroduced it to North America, we came with obviously the Giulia, the first performance sedan that we've introduced in a long time. Actually, the first one that it brought Alfa Romeo back 20 years later, since 1995. And then obviously the vehicle I'm standing by right now, which is our Alfa Romeo Stelvio, our first SUV we're bringing in the market. What makes this vehicle unique to the Giulia is that we have standard all-wheel drive system, but no worries, it's a rear-wheel drive bias system, so it will allow the power to be transferred to the rear-wheel drives completely as well when necessary to really give that Alfa Romeo driving experience. It's very important for Alfa Romeo to be obviously here at the Monterey Car Week, and the passion is truly here, and we want to show the loyalty we've had for these people carrying on the passion for the brand when we were not in the US over the last 20 years. It's an honor being here, it's an honor being around all these historical vehicles, and obviously it's a great opportunity for us to introduce a new vehicle as well.
And the crowd waiting, we're getting closer and closer, of course, to the big event, the Best in Show award. Cars are being pulled out of the compound where Johnny and Alan de Cadenet are, and there'll be three of them lining up. One of those three cars will be our Best in Show. In the meantime,
as the next car rolls up on stage, I don't know what the attendance record is for the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, but I have to guesstimate that this year's crowd may be among the biggest effort. Anywhere there is an empty space along the railing of the upper levels or here on the ground at the 18th green, there are people looking at these cars. Now let's join Johnny with another of our class winners.
Hey, Bob. I'm standing in front of a 1929 Mercedes-Benz S-Type Barker Tour, and it is a stunning, exquisite car. And sorry, getting bumped here. It's this blue and silver. It's absolutely gorgeous. The hood is actually long on the body. It has these weird outboard pontoon riggers that contain the toolkits. The bright work is exquisite. And if I was a thinking man, I would say this is probably a lock to actually win the entire thing. But absolutely incredible car. Bob, I'm going to send it back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Johnny.
and that was the car that I think will go all the way here this year at Pebble Beach. An absolutely spectacular car.
So that's your choice. Each of our on-camera hosts will have the opportunity to pick a car that they think will win Best in Show before the actual announcement is made. Meanwhile, that blue number you just saw on the stage was a 1909 Duesenberg BV Type de Course, winner of the Charles A. Chain Trophy, awarded to the car with the most advanced engineering for its era.
And now a vehicle from the very early days of America's automotive history, the 1904 Holzman Model 3 Runabout. And this is what's known as a high wheel car for obvious reasons, and these were built often using carriage, horse-drawn carriages as their base. And the reason was, back in the day, of course, America's roads weren't that developed, and you needed a car like this with high ground clearance and those sorts of wheels to straddle the tracks in the road.
One of the fascinating things about each year's Concours d'Elegance is the fact that it's a very human process. It's hard to imagine what a judge might pick. Certainly, the professional judges who pick the class winners are experts in their field. But when the class winners are ogled on the stage, if I may use that word, by the honorary judges who are not necessarily professionals. They may be designers, they may be racing drivers, they may be celebrities of one sort or another, but they're going to go with a very subjective sort of view of what they think deserves Best in Show.
And that's what makes this so interesting. That's the X factor in here, you know, the elegance, the subjective opinion. And, you know, some of the car designers that are honorary judges here, very, very experienced. They absolutely know a good line, a great panel, a nicely proportioned car. They know all that stuff. So there's a lot of expert opinion going into finding that elegance.
And once again, the green ribbon on the front of the car indicates that it took part in the Tour d'Elegance, a special tour around 17-mile drive on the Monterey Peninsula ending in Carmel, California. Not every car participates, but the ones that do automatically win the tiebreak for best of show if, in fact, they tie, in the opinion of the judges, with another car. And we've got a Maserati up on stage right now for another of the special awards. This is the Vitesse Elegance Trophy, being awarded to a 1956 Maserati 300S Fantuzzi race car, owned by Henri Chambon of Vence in France.
Of course, that the Maserati brothers founded Maserati, and there was 5 of them, but there was a 6th brother who was an artist, and he is the one who designed the logo with the trident.
And now it's time for another class winner with Johnny.
Thanks, Bob. I'm standing here with a 1958 Ferrari 335 Sport. Testarossa. It's a body by Scaglietti. It's obviously an open-top car. It's a Spider. And, you know, this is a big year for Ferrari, being the 70th anniversary of the brand. This particular one won its class, and it's just stunning. First of all, I'm of the opinion that all non-red Ferraris are cool. This thing's automatically cool, and you can see the velocity stacks up on top of the hood. They're under some sort of composite clear plastic thingy, and it's just magnificent. Leather on the hood, plus you had hood pins. I think it was like at Le Mans you had to have leather to hold the engine engine cover down. Some other races you had to have pins. Yeah, this is about as good as Ferraris get, and this is why it won its class here at Pebble Beach. And this car was actually, you know, it's an interesting history too. It was ordered by Luigi Cinetti, who of course was involved with NART, North America Racing Team for Ferrari, and eventually wound up with Phil Hill, Derek's father, who raced it at the 1990 Miglia recreation. So just kind of a fastic car, and again, it was yeah, just a lovely winner. So I'm going to go ahead with that, and I'm going to toss it back to you, Bob.
All right, thank you, Johnny. And Angus, we certainly haven't had anywhere near enough time to talk about the 70th anniversary of Ferrari and their presence here at Pebble Beach.
And it is a special moment in automotive history. As you've mentioned, Ferrari is the world's most recognized automotive brand. In 1947, Enzo Ferrari, after cutting his teeth in racing with Alfa Romeo before the war, decided to go out on his own and build his own race car. And the very, very first Ferrari had a V12 engine, the 125S, and the 125 stood for the capacity of each cylinder. And 125 times 12 is 1.5 litre 12-cylinder engine.
Now back to Johnny.
Thanks, Bob. Well, it is their 70th birthday party, so I'm going to do another Ferrari, and this is a really spectacular car. It's red, but this one deserves to be red. We are looking at the winner of the very last Mille Miglia. This is the car that won in 1957, the last year the race was run. It was, I believe, Wolfgang von Trips and Piero Tagliafitti. Pardon my pronunciation. Anyways, they won the car with this race. It's absolutely incredible. It's a big, beautiful 3.8-liter V12 car. And, you know, that particular class, they were saying if you had all 10 cars together, it might actually be near $1 billion in value. And this is the one judged to be the best. And, I mean, I'm telling you, just being in the presence of this car it's fantastic.
There are so many stories that are part and parcel of the legend of Ferrari. Meanwhile, currently on the stage, I believe this is our winner of the Jules Human Most Elegant Open Car, a 1929 Mercedes-Benz S Barker Tourer, owned by Bruce McCaw of Bellevue, Washington.
Yes, and we're going to see more of this car later today, I'm convinced. Absolutely stunning with its original Marshall lighting on it, a British body. You might notice as they pan along, or if the camera drops down, you'll see those torpedo-shaped running boards there. They look spectacular, but they also serve a purpose. There's you can put tools and other essentials that you needed for motoring back in those days.
And that was Bruce McCaw in the white motoring cap, as we spoke about earlier. There's an absolutely gorgeous Bugatti about to take its turn on stage.
This is the gang laugh that Johnny showed us just earlier. Again, a car that is very much to type for Pebble Beach. Bugatti, of course, has won more times here than any other marque, 9 times in total. Can this car make it a 10th? I'm not sure. I think it doesn't quite have the appeal of an Atlante. It's a style of Bugatti that we've seen before and is very familiar on that ramp there. So nothing wrong with the car per se, but competition is just so intense that I think it might struggle.
And as the car rolls across, we'll go back to Johnny with another class winner.
I am standing here with a 1952 Porsche 356 Reuter Cabriolet, and as 911s kind of jump up in value, I think that the 356s are becoming much more interesting and much more desirable. This is a very early one. They built 294 Porsches in 1952, and only 4 of them ever made their way to the U.S. I should say 4 cabriolets, and this is one of them. And it's absolutely stunning. It's a pre-A. It's a bent window car, and obviously it's a class winner. Bob, I'm going to throw it back to you.
All right, thank you, Johnny. Robert Ingram, the owner of that car, a very well-known collector in the North Carolina area.
Of course, a lovely Ferrari up there on the ramp, and
this is the 55 375 Plus Pininfarina Cabriolet Speciale, winner of the Strother McMinn Most Elegant Sports Car, and well-deserved.
And it was the second Ferrari built for King Leopold of Belgium and the last 375 America. So great backstory to that car, and as we've mentioned before, it's not just the cars themselves, it's the stories that are associated with these cars that makes them so fascinating.
Still known around the Pininfarina company as the car that never grows old.
Absolutely, classic style, and of course the crowd's still here, getting closer and closer to finding out who will be the 3 contenders for the coveted Best in Show award here at Pebble Beach.
Looks quite a bit different, does the 18th fairway here at the Pebble Beach Golf Links, than when, say, the annual National Pro-Am is held around this loop.
And as you can see, the lawn stretching back there, the crowds of people still around all the cars. The corporate hospitality area is still full, and the crowds will stay here until the cars start to leave. We've heard of Dawn Patrol, where you're here first thing in the morning. Well, some of us have started Dusk Patrol. We watch the cars go out at the end of the night.
Well, it's true that golf begins again next week, so I'm sure the turf crew here at Pebble Beach is anxious to take back their 18th fairway. Now let's rejoin Alan de Cadenet.
Well, just to show you how popular Pebble Beach Concours are, look who I have here. This very, very well-behaved dog, I must say. He's looking at every car that comes over. He's having a good sniff around. He has his sartorial mistress there with her Louis Vuitton bag, and I've asked him what he thinks might win Best of Show. What do you got to say there? Ferrari. Well, I think he wants to eat my microphone, but he's a beautiful-looking dog, and I just thought that was a nice side attraction from a car. Back to you guys.
Well, it certainly helps to pass the time, and it is a long day here at Pebble Beach. As Angus mentioned earlier, from the pre-dawn hours when hundreds and hundreds of people show up just to watch the cars roll onto the fairway. They do not touch the grass of the golf course until the Sunday morning of the concours. And they're arranged by group. They're here all day for all of the festivities, all the way through Best of Show. And then, as I just mentioned earlier, it's time to move on out to let the mowers back out here.
We saw some of the cars that have been class winners. Disappointing that we weren't able to show you the American Dream cars from the 1960s, one of my favorite classes, and Pebble Beach does this every year. It brings cars that are perhaps outside what you would expect outside the extravagant cars of the 20s and 30s, the brass cars of the pre-war era, and the exotics from the 1950s and 60s. These American Dream cars, some of them were great. One car, the Tex Smith XR6 Hot Rod, I can remember seeing as a young guy growing up in Australia, an old copy of Hot Rod magazine. I read everything about that car, and to come to Pebble Beach and actually see it there in all its metal and fiberglass glory is just spectacular.
Now, as we mentioned, there is no possibility of a tie for Best in Show because there is a unique tie-break system in place called the Tour d'Elegance, and the cars that participated in that tour have the advantage in the case of a tie. Amazing to see all those people still standing around waiting for the word to be passed down. We're all just waiting briefly as you take another look at that luscious Ferrari, I'm sure Alain Ducadenet would describe it as. And you heard the name Luigi Canetti mentioned in connection with the NART, North American Racing Team. If you want to win a bet in the bar sometime, challenge some fan as to which American first won overall at Le Mans. They may say Phil Hill. Nope, the answer is Luigi Canetti. Naturalized American, yes, but the first American flag winner. Now let's go back to Alan.
Well, Canetti won in that car we have here, car number 22, that little Ferrari. He won that. Well, that's who drove with Lord Selsdon, who unfortunately was ill and only did about 1 hour of the driving. But look what we've got here. You see this 535 on the front. That is the time in the morning that this car left Brescia on its way down to Rome, 500 miles away, and then back 500 miles to Brescia for the whole 1,000-mile race in 1957. And I've already, I think, explained what happened in that poor race, tragic race, when in fact Portago went off, and unfortunately they had to cancel the race. But I have to say, this car is absolutely immaculate. I mean, the guy who owns this car is known for immaculate machinery. It's a very pure car. It's got its original body, original engine. It's making a wonderful, wonderful noise. And I have to say, actually, wait a minute, is that Paris I see there?
Jack.
You're Jack?
Yeah.
So have you driven your father's car yet?
No, not yet.
You want to drive this, don't you?
Eventually.
Well, how soon will that be?
We'll see.
You want me to have a word with him?
I think so. I think that would help my chances.
Yeah, okay. How nice is that? Yeah, that's Jack, the owner's son, and what more wonderful thing to get your hands on than that if you're a teenage guy. But it's about 440 horsepower, I believe that gives. It's a powerful car. We've got two other cars sitting here, and obviously these I think we're going to be choosing the best of show from. A gorgeous Packard 1932, that's a twin six. Twin six is another way of saying V12 in fact. Again, this car absolutely immaculate example of its type. Packard built phenomenal cars. Their engineering was second to none. And I think we may have heard the story already that in World War II, when Ford did not take up their contract to produce Merlin engines for Spitfires and Lancasters and Mustangs, etc., Packard did. And thank goodness they did, because the Merlin was, of course, the engine that won the war. I had a good look at this car earlier, and it is, again, truly immaculate. And the gentleman who owns it, Chip Connor, also known for, you know, the way that he restores cars, the best of the best. I might just have a quick word with him. Chip, this is a great joy to see you and Jackie here. I mean, how lovely is this? Where you expected to be, I think.
I've learned after the passage of years never to expect too much, but it is always such a thrill for me to be going up to the ramp for anything at all, and to be here today is just fabulous.
I entirely agree with you. You're not known for liking to come second, but we'll see what happens. And of course we have a most immaculate car here that used to belong to Earl Howe in England, 1929 Mercedes-Benz Barker Tourer. Yet another car, you see, that, look at it, it's painted in Earl Howe's blue. It's owned by a gentleman who's a member of the same family that owns the Ferrari. Bruce, this looks to me like we might have a bit of an inter-family little challenge here.
Rivalry, I think, yes. Yeah, I said, I wonder when the last time there were two brothers on this row.
Do you know, that's a very good question. I guess as a historian here can probably tell us.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But Earl Howe never did things by halves. I think every car he ever owned, he looked after it. They raced them, they rallied them, they did all kinds of things. I mean, your car is looking immaculate.
Yeah, well, it's an extraordinary car and with an extraordinary history.
Well, I'm not taking any sides, but I am. It's so nice to have three good friends here. So back to you, Bob.
All right, thanks very much, Alan. I think it's an appropriate time to select Best of Show. For that, let's go to Derek Hill on the microphone.
It's windy here. Let me catch my notes. The 67th annual Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance Best of Show winner is the 1929 Mercedes-Benz S Barker Tour by Bruce Armica from Bellevue, Washington.
There you have it. Bruce McCaw competing, incidentally, against his brother John, the owner of that 57 Ferrari Scaglietti Spider, takes home Best in Show with this incredible 1929 Mercedes-Benz S Barker Tourer.
And as I said early on, this car caught my eye. It's got everything a Pebble Beach Best in Show winner needs. It's got great ramp presence. It's got scale and size to it. It looks spectacular. It looks elegant. It looks fast. It really is a wonderful car.
Its ownership chain includes Earl Howe, British racing driver and co-founder of the renowned British Racing Drivers Club, whose headquarters are at the Silverstone circuit and features prominently in each year's Formula One British Grand Prix.
It's had a continuous history, and when we were able to find some great period photos and really figure out how to get the car back as it was correctly, it was just a thrill. And it's been a great project. I really want to thank Steve Babinski for the restoration, Thor Thorson and my company, and Sandro, thank you for having us. And I'm thrilled.
For you, so you can get out. You don't have to carry that, okay? And
Yeah, Bruce, let's get you out of the car.
So that's a little bit.
Okay. It's a very compact car, and the owner is going to find his way to get out of the car now.
And so the ceremonies will begin as Bruce McCaw emerges from his car. I suspect, given the collection between the brothers McCaw, not the last time that they will take home Best in Show here at Pebble Beach.
It's going to be interesting around the dinner table tonight, isn't it?
Right. You won, you buy.
But, you know, you saw, yes, you know, a lot of the gentlemen who own these cars now, they're not as young as the people who raced them back in the day. When you're a racing driver, you can get in and out of your sports cars quite easily. That's a very long car, but it's very cramped in the cockpit.
That's Chairman Sandra Button with the trophy.
And a very proud Bruce McCaw there.
Mm-hmm.
This is the big one. Look at that smile. A very, very happy man.
Just look at the crowd of fans looking for a photograph. You know Bruce fairly well from his days as a car owner in Champ Car. I would imagine he'd be happy to stand around and allow people to take his picture as long as they like, as long as they include his car.
Terrific car. The wheels right forward, that great big long engine. Gives you the classic proportions from late 1920s, early 1930s. I used to draw pictures of cars like this as a kid. It just seems right somehow, and it's an old saying, if it looks right, it is. And spectacular looking car. You'll notice the positive camber on the front wheels there. Back in the day, with a solid axle, you needed that to help you, get some front end grip into corners. And it was quite an effort to drive these cars quickly, but very satisfying. A lot of power, of course, with these big Mercedes engine in this car. Sort of car that could cover a lot of ground very effortlessly at the time. It is the equivalent to having a very supercar today, pretty much. Back when most people were driving small Fords and Chevys.
Bruce McCall receiving a beautiful Rolex watch from Stuart Vich on behalf of Rolex. He also received a photograph of his car from Michael Furman of Coach Built Press. And finally, there will be the Cristal Champagne. Here we go. Gregory Bello, President and CEO of Louis Roederer. Winning at Pebble Beach is a gift that keeps on giving. Unofficially, I believe this is Bruce McCaw's first Best in Show win at Pebble Beach, but not the first for his family. Brother John knows what it feels like because he has won it previously.
A little different from the champagne celebration on the grid of a Formula One, on the podium of a Formula One race.
Well, these gentlemen know what to do with a bottle of fine champagne. You don't spray it all over the ground.
A toast.
Indeed.
A great show, great quality of cars this year, cars we haven't seen before, some spectacular cars. The preservation class Bentley stole my heart, stole Johnny's heart, I know. Ferraris, of course, 70 years of Ferrari. How could you not have a great Ferrari?
I'm not sure what to say, but I think this is such a great organization, and I think Sandra and the entire staff do such an incredible job, and it's a great thing in this community, and I hope it continues on for many, many years to come, but just very special.
Well, thank you, and you've been such a terrific entrant over the years, and you always surprise us with something just absolutely beautiful and magnificent, and well-deserved. It's wonderful to see. I want to congratulate again to our Best of Show winner and all the other award winners today. We will be taking the Best of Show winner to the media for interviews. Once again, the stage is reserved for the winning car, and we appreciate your help in staying clear of the ramp area. Let's get in another interview for you, Bruce. Thank you again so much.
Bruce, you weren't even nervous there when I just spoke to you beforehand, and it's one of the greatest honors. One of the greatest honors, I think.
Well, I don't know how to feel. So, anyway, I think I was quite nervous. But what do you do?
Well, I know you to be a car man through and through. It's a very large part of your life, philosophically, and I know you love driving cars and being involved with them. And this is just one of the top accolades that anyone can ever have in their life.
It is. I mean, it's fantastic. I just don't know how to describe it.
Well, just have a happy, joyful time and drink champagne and be thankful.
Yeah, and enjoy life.
Great. Well done, you and your team that did it for you as well.
Yeah,
I mean, the quality of workmanship is unbelievable.
We had a great team. I mean, Steve Babinski, who did the restoration, and Charles Bronson did a lot of the historical work and found a lot of the parts we needed, and Thor Thorson and my company, and it was a team effort, and we just decided we wanted to do it. We wanted the car to be exactly right, not too much, not too little, just as it should be. So.
Well, you are a very noble custodian for posterity. I can't say better than that. What a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alan.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce and Alain. That car will be there for pictures for a while, but there's one more treat for the fans as all these cars leave the 18th fairway here at the Pebble Beach Golf Links. They form a spectacular parade on their own. Time for some final thoughts. Angus?
Well, apart from our little difficulties, it was a great show. We're already starting to see, are we getting our own little show now as the cars line up to go? But quality, again, spectacular cars I haven't seen before in the metal, and the eclectic nature too. As I've mentioned, everything from brass cars to the most extravagant 1920s and 30s cars, the exotic cars from the 50s and 60s. But I loved the American dream cars. That was sort of like childhood memories for me, brought to life. And seeing cars that had raced here at Pebble Beach too, back in the 1950s. It reminds you that, Southern California was a hotbed of creativity in terms of the automobile industry. And it's one of the reasons why every major automaker in the world has a design studio in Southern California. A great, great show, great cars, and great stories to tell.
Now time for a final thought from Johnny Lieberman.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, this was an interesting year for me personally, but I think for all of us, because it was pretty obvious to say who the class winner was going to be. But the overall winner, with my head, it was going to be that Mercedes from the start. I got a picture from a friend of mine at Dawn Patrol, said this has to be the winner, and the scuttlebutt was that car would probably win that Barker Tour because it was so magnificent. But your heart takes you to strange places. For a hot second, I thought it might be the Rolls. Maybe it's the new Phantom just came out, and that Rolls Phantom 3, owned by Field Marshal Montgomery. And then I was thinking, man, that Bentley 8-liter was so fantastic. But and then when the Mille winning Ferrari showed up as a top 3, I said, 7 years of Ferrari, that could be it. But in the end, the car that again, should have won. So I think we're all happy. But just another incredible year here at Pebble Beach. And Bob, I'm going to hand this one back to you. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks very much, Johnny. And by the way, we have not yet been informed of what next year's honored marque will be. I'm sure that information will be coming along shortly. And one other note, next year, the U.S. Amateur Golf Championship will be hosted here at Pebble Beach. And as a result, Car Week here on the Monterey Peninsula, capped, as always, by the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, will be moved back 1 week and will take place on August 26th. So mark your calendars now. And let's get a final thought from Alan de Cadenet.
Bob and Johnny and Angus and Ed, I have to tell you, this has been, for me, an exceptional Pebble Beach. In spite of a few mishaps we've had at one end, I think the most noble of all the cars here won the event. But to have Mille Miglia outright winning cars, as I said at the top of the show, to have Le Mans winning cars, all the valuable and wonderful Ferraris that you could ever expect to get, a sunny day, no problems for anybody else except us poor lot that couldn't get on the air when things went a bit wonky. But altogether, a very, very satisfying day for me. I've had a wonderful time, and I cannot think really of a better custodian of a car than Bruce McCaw, and of a more delightful machine to be the very Pebble Beach champion. Bob.
Very well said, Alan. Thank you. And I'll second everything that you just said. Don't forget, next year, the 68th Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance will be on August 26th, and we hope to share it with you then. Again, our most profound apologies for the technical difficulties that affected us earlier in the broadcast. But in the end, we're glad we were able to bring you best of show and most of the class winners. It has been indeed a great weekend here on the Monterey Peninsula of California. Our thanks to everybody involved with the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance and the Pebble Beach Golf Links for their hospitality this weekend. We thank all of you for standing with us through a long day here in California. So for Angus McKenzie, Alan de Cadenet, Johnny Lieberman, and Ed Lowe, I'm Bob Varsha saying so long from the Pebble Beach Golf Links in Pebble Beach, California.
A6 GPS traffic.